Well, hi there, and welcome along to Jump to It, brought to you by IrishRacing.com. I'm Ed Quigley. We're going to be having a look at what should be an excellent weekend of action with Newbury's Betfair Hurdle and that car taking centre stage. Of course, let's not forget there's a small matter of Arkle favourite John Bon looking to strut his stuff at Warwick's Kingmaker meeting. And we're going to be touching upon some of the action at Navan on Sunday as well, which could, I stress could, and should have a bit of a bearing on some Cheltenham Festival races. We're going to discuss all that, as ever, in the company of Stephen Harris. Stephen, how are you? Look, I can see that sun coming through your attic window. You must be sunburnt.
Well, it does feel a lot more spring-like, Ed. It's been so cold for the last few weeks, and now things have warmed up a little bit and the weather's a lot brighter. The only problem with that, we were talking off air, weren't we, that, of course, it's been a stop-start season for one reason or another with the big freeze, too much rain, and now we're sort of drying out, and all of a sudden the field sizes are starting to cut up all over the shop. We've had a funny week of lots of non-runners at Doncaster and Huntingdon late, and I think the trainers are being caught on the hop. It's suddenly sort of panic stations with some of these horses. They think they've got to get a run into them. You know, they've been sort of locked away in their boxes for months on end, and all of a sudden the ground's dried up again. So it's certainly going to be about speed, I think, at both Warwick and Newbury this weekend.
Absolutely. Totally different complexion to what you would normally assume for the start of February. I've said, looking back through the history of this, Warwick's, this meeting's often been run on very deep ground. Newbury as well. We've had soft ground Betfair hurdles. A little bit of trivia for you off the bat, just before we get on to our races of the week. What was the major announcement at Newbury Racecourse 8 years ago tomorrow, Stephen? I don't know if you can hark back.
I don't know, but was it calling it the Racecourse Newbury, retitling it that?
It wasn't, but it could have been. But I like that. Yeah.
No, what was it?
It was AP McCoy announced he was retiring from the saddle.
Oh, God, is that right. 8 years ago?
8 years. Tempest Fugitive, yeah. He announced after, I think it was Mr. Mole, he won the Game Spirit on, he would, the Cheltenham Festival would be his last, and he would be retiring at the end of the season. I just thought I'd throw that one in there. Yeah, 8 years, just to prove how you cannot slow down Father Time, can you? But anyway.
That's unbelievable. That is unbelievable.
It is, isn't it? Feels like yesterday. We will move on. It is now time to look ahead to our races of the week. Right, without further ado, let's get stuck into the action on what should be a very informative, if not as nothing else, Newbury card. With the 150 is the Betfair Multiples offer every Saturday handicap hurdle. Best part of £11,000 on offer to the winner here for this 3-mile event. 9 declared, Stephen. You'll be hoping it stays around that figure. A lot of, as you say, a lot of watch on the ground and underfoot conditions. We've got each way opportunities. I thought this was an absolute conundrum. Barbados Bucks is your market leader at around 7-2. I was looking at the ratings. Probably needs to win this to guarantee to get into the Per Temps final. He's probably touch and go. You've got West of the Bridge 6-1. Anningham Victor 7-1. This is always one I was going to leave you to pronounce, but Jutta Louis for Philip Hobbs and Tom O'Brien 7s. We're going 8s regarding Ruth, 9s bar. A bit of a head scratcher in my view, Stephen. Do you see it more conclusively than that?
No, I agree, Ed. A lot of disappointing horses who are getting on a bit and are starting to slide down the handicap without winning. I mean, Barbados Bucks, he's one of those horses who always attracts support and never really sees his races out properly. Maybe he's been running himself fit in a couple of runs this season, but I rather doubt it. I couldn't really be. West of the Bridge was seen to absolute maximum effect last time out and still managed to finish second. I thought the interesting one here is JBY of Alan King's. Now, first of all, a negative. Another horse hasn't won for quite a while. And Alan King only 3 from 35 in the last fortnight, which is a slight negative. I mean, I can't say I've noticed loads of them running appallingly badly, but he's not having many winners. An 8% strike rate, be well below what he'd normally hope to be operating on. But this one made a promising start, finished third on seasonal debut. Then ran okay, second run back, last time out on Boxing Day at Kempton, the ground was pretty testing, and that's not what he wants. He needs good ground.
Yeah.
So really, he's got his ground for the first time this season. He's slid down a few pounds in the weights. I can see Newbury suiting him. He's not an easy horse to win with. He's like one of these smooth travellers. He's often a horse you sort of look 3 out and you think, what's that? Because it's going quite well. And he doesn't win as many as he should, but this is a pretty weak race. And he was double figures when they priced up. I thought that was over the odds.
Yeah, JBY still 9-1 available at the time of recording about the Alan King representative. Yeah, cheap pieces on for the first time and steps up to 3 miles. I think for the first time as well. Yeah, yet to go beyond 2.7. So yeah, they've tried
that
lots
could
of
be a
different things
slight
with him,
doubt.
as you say.
He
Right.
might not get home. Sheehan is a very good booking for him. Brilliant jockey, Gavin Sheehan, whether it's off the front or schooling them round out the back, producing them. I really like him, and I wouldn't have thought he's been on before. So that's quite an eye-catching booking there. It's a race where it's easy to be negative about nearly all of them, and I thought double figures about JBY was just about fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think it's very tricky. If I was forced, I'd be with Annual Invictus just because the horse has some very good ground. And you mentioned stable form, Stephen. Chris Gordon, absolutely flying in February, 41% strike rate. 5 winners, 4 placed horses from 12 runners. So that yard going very well. Yeah, that is an incredibly tricky race, I think it's fair to say. One, again, I think could be quite tricky actually to solve in many respects, is at 225, the Betfair Denman Chase, of course, named after that superb chase of yesteryear for the Paul Nicholls team, while Paul Nicholls heads the market with Hitman on the comeback trail at 2-1. Eldorado Allen, last year's winner, at 3-1 here. Fanion Destraval for Venetia Williams at 4-1 shot. Does he know 7s? Sam Brown 12s. Kalashnikov 22s. You get 28-1 or there or thereabouts. The Ruffy Zanza in the field. I suppose we'll start with Hitman here, Stephen. I know both of us were quite keen on him for the King George. All kind of went west, didn't it, really? He made an absolute Horlicks of the fence down the back straight and reportedly burst a blood vessel in the aftermath. So, well, I'm viewing at it is we don't really know either way as to whether he does stay 3 miles yet. If you see what I'm saying? You put a line through that run in many respects. Doesn't prove his stamina either way is what I'm saying. So how do you kind of see him shaping up? Obviously in receipt of £6 from last year's winner, Eldorado Allen.
Yeah, I thought this was quite an interesting race. When they first priced up, Hitman was quite short, wasn't he? He was about 13.08, and instinctively, I say the same thing every week, but when they run really badly, whatever the explanation is backfitted afterwards, I tend to take with a pinch of salt. And I think he did run. He was in trouble very early on in the King George. We were both on. I mean, in fairness to you, Ed, you put him up at 33-1 about 3 or 4 months earlier. And at one point, it looked like there were going to be no runners, and he might be sort of 7-2. But he was quite weak, wasn't he, on the day? I mean, I was with him as well. So. He was a big drifter, and he ran really badly. I mean, you sort of thought, well, we won't see him again this season. There must have been something majorly wrong with him, but maybe he'll bounce back. Mr. Saturday, Paul Nicholls, he obviously revs them all up for these big races on Saturday, but I couldn't really see how he could be a short price. I thought Eldorado Allen has got ideal conditions. Now, I was going to say there's a big negative that Joe Tizard at the start of this week was 0 from 35. He'd actually been going really well until that big freeze came along and shut everything down for 2 weeks. And it seemed to be, I guess they probably couldn't get on the gallops because his horses sort of disappeared since then. But he has had a winner. He had a winner, I think, yesterday.
The mare, Scirocco's Dream. Yeah.
That's right. And he had a couple of others ran well. So I'm not too worried now. Eldorado Allen, last year, he got a brilliant ride from Powell. He banged him off in front. And I've always thought he's one of those horses, isn't he, Eldorado Allen? I think we've been with him quite a few times in his career. Sometimes he promises more than he ends up delivering. But front running round Newbury on decent ground really suited him last year. And I think they'll do the same again here. The other horse I think might want to lead is Does He Know of Kim Bailey, only because Bass seems to front run on all of Bailey's. But that's another yard for me. Has been very quiet, Kim Bailey. Noughts from 13. They're not having many runners, and he's certainly not having many winners, probably since the turn of the year, in truth. So that's a question mark for Does He Know. But I think this is a good chance for Brendan Powell to bang Eldorado Allen off in front, get him jumping well. He definitely likes this ground. If you read back he was disappointing himself in the King George, but maybe that was a step too far for him. There's nothing wrong with his previous two efforts. In fact, his effort in the Charlie Hall, Ed, if you look back at that, well, the winner Brave Man's Game, obviously an
Brave
8 to
Man's
1
Game, yeah.
chance for the Gold Cup. He was well in front of Sam Brown, who reopposes it. Sam Brown will not be suited by good ground, which is what it's going to be at Newbury. I couldn't have him with
Yeah.
stolen money. I think
No.
he'll be outpaced. The fourth, Paint the Dream, came out and won a handicap next time by 3 fences. And the tailed off fifth was none other than Ahoy Senor. So if you want to go back into the sort of depths of the form, but there's nothing wrong with that run, and maybe he's had excuses since. So I thought 3 to 1. I would probably sort of make him sort of 9 to 4 favourite if I was pricing up to 100%. So I thought 3 to 1 was one of the better bets of the weekend, to be honest.
My interesting. We're taking each other on there. I've got the faith in Hitman to bounce back, but I do think the joker in the pack could be Fanny and Destraval, who's a bit of an enigma, but does have some excellent form at this course. You say you kind of go away from Newbury, especially you go to like Cheltenham on soft ground, etc. His form doesn't really stack up, but he's got 2 wins at this track. I think he's got to be taken seriously with first-time cheap pieces on. But nonetheless, that should be a really good race, and probably more of a look forward to entry going further forward, I suppose you'd imagine, Stephen, albeit Hitman does have an entry in the Ryanair Chase. You'd imagine it's probably unlikely you'd take up that engagement, even allowing for a win here.
Definitely. I think Hitman is much more an Aintree horse than a Cheltenham horse, definitely. And I don't think Paul Nicholls needs any invitation to dodge Cheltenham. If he can find a race after Cheltenham when he hasn't got all of Ireland coming over to beat his horses by miles, I think he'd much sooner opt for Aintree. I think he's been so chastened the last few years that, I can well see him swerving Cheltenham wherever he can.
Yeah. Fair point. We'll see what develops in the future. Moving on to the 3 o'clock, isn't it? It's the Betfair Exchange, the Game Spirit Chase. Talked about this race at the top of the show. Some good memories here. Now, last year's winner, Funnable Civilla, is back for more. Again, another horse who seems to have some stunning form here for Venetia Williams, but doesn't always replicate it elsewhere. He's got the mighty task, it would appear, on ratings and recent form of trying to topple Granatine for Cobden and Nicholls, Stephen. Obviously, Granatine wiped the floor with the field in the Holden Gold Cup, and then was runner-up to Edwardstone, splitting Edwardstone and Shishkin in the Tingle Creek. Again, that form doesn't look too bad, does it? I mean, Gentleman to Me came out and romped home recently in Ireland. I mean, 4 to 9, Granatine. Do you see any chinks in his armour at this price? Do you think there's any kind of banana skin here for the Paul Nicholls runner?
Well, I mean, on ratings, I think he's £15 in front of Funnable Civilla and £25 in front of Elixir. I mean, he looks a good thing, really. He probably overdid things a little bit in the Tingle Creek. They got racing a long way out, didn't they? And he just weakened coming to 2 out. Yeah, it was tacky ground. I think when he won at Halden first time out, they thought he was about 90% straight, and it was a pretty remarkable weight-carrying performance. One of the sort of really good handicap performances. And he's nearly a top class horse, isn't he? He's probably one of the better Grade 1, 2 milers in the UK. Of course, you always suspect they might be getting beaten by the Irish, but he's a real good advert for Paul Nicholls. Paul Nicholls, 13 winners in the last fortnight, flying along, 23%, nothing to worry about there. Venetia, just got the impression they've gone a bit quiet, but she has had 4 winners in the last fortnight at 11%. I mean, traditionally, you always think Venetia, a bit of a cliche, but hock deep ground in November, they come alive. And, we're heading probably towards good ground at Newbury. I'm not totally sure it's what Funnable Civilla wants. One of those horses of Venetia's been operating a little bit below par in some warm races this season, but you wouldn't be totally amazed if he bounced back at a track where he's run so well in the past. But I mean, I don't think it's a great betting race. I mean, 9 to 4 on is probably Greenatine's price. It'd be hard to say that it should be much bigger than that. There's a rag in here who can't win, so Mortlack's $1 million. Melistic is a northern handicapper, basically, that they're always sunk without trace. I mean, Peter Niven probably, I wouldn't imagine he's ever had a Newbury winner in his life, and he's unlikely to with this one. So it does look pretty gilt-edged for the favourite.
Yeah, it does. The angle, I was delving into the sub-markets, if you like. Funnable Civilla is 11 to 8 without Granatine.
Yeah,
I don't think Mortlack or Malistic will be good enough to trouble him. So I'm basically getting 11-8 in a match against
yeah,
Alexia de Nuts. That was the kind of way I'm looking at it. So yeah, or Granatine to beat Thunderbolt Sivilla for the exacta, whichever way you want to
yeah.
slice
I
it
think
up.
you're
Right.
the
Well,
11-8 does seem fair. That does seem a fair price, doesn't it? I mean, I quite like Thunderbolt Survivors to sort of line up handy and front run, and maybe Greenatine sits
yeah.
second, and you could see getting into a good rhythm off the front, rolling along, jumping well. But he's not been the easiest horse to catch right so far this season.
No, you're spot on. I'm hoping the return to Newbury will galvanise last year's winner, Thunderbolt Sivilla, who beat Sir Royale. And funny enough, I think beat Hitman in that race, didn't he? 12 months ago. Right, we'll move on. We're going to look at the 335. This is the final race from Newbury we're going to be covering, which, of course, is the big one in many respects. It is the Betfair Hurdle. 18 runners declared for this Class 1 handicap. Nearly £88,000 to the winner. Look, the market for a long time has been revolving around this Filey Bay for the Emmett Mullins yard. This 7-year-old who arrives here on a hat trick. You got Rabot of Paul Nichols. I probably pronounced that wrong, but I know French is your strong suit, Stephen. So I'll leave you to take over on the pronunciation of that one. But he's around 7-1. Iker Allen 8. Hakadou Placey 8. Crikey, it's just like my French lessons all over again. No Ordinary Joe 10s. Montvial 10s. Master Chewy 12s. And we're 14s a bar. Straightforward. Are you with or against the favourite, Stephen? If you're against, who are you with?
Well, I think he's probably short enough in a race of this nature, but standing in the way of Emmett Mullins, if they want to be on, is probably a way to the poorhouse. I mean, he's a hard horse to assess. He's had 2 runs for Emmett. I think he was with Wall previously, Declan Wall in Ireland. He's had 2 runs, even money at Doncaster, barely off the bridle, and then he ran it on the 1st of December at Wincanton, and that was that day, Ed. I don't know if you remember, you couldn't see anything all day, and he emerged out of the fog narrowly
Mist.
in front.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it was anyone's guess how easily he won or what happened during the race. I mean, but nonetheless, he returned. He won, which wasn't a surprise looking at the SP and the stable confidence behind him. This is obviously a much better race, and it's chock full of very progressive horses. I mean, if you had your eyes shut and you didn't see Emmett Mullins and the JP colours, he couldn't be 4-1. He'd have to be double figures on the bare form. I mean, he's miles up in class, but it's a dangerous game taking them on. First thing to say, 18 runners, they'll be offering 5 or 6 places for looking in the morning, which makes it a very favourable race for punters to play on if you can get on with the extra places. I know it's an if, and a lot of people get cross when we talk about it because they haven't got access to these offers. It's only available to certain customers these days. But if you're willing to put in the legwork and maybe go to a shop, you can get 6 places. I like Master Chewy here, which probably goes against the grain. He's a novice. He hasn't run in a handicap before. But if you remember back a couple of starts, Ed, he was a very unlucky loser of a relatively warm race at Ascot. He
Mm.
fell at the last when 2 lengths clear. Since then, he's been expensive 2-1 and turned over odds on at Plumpton last time. And I know a lot of people think, well, Plumpton, how can a horse go from Plumpton to Newbury? But Plumpton, they have really good novice hurdles around there, and he ran very well. You watch the run back, he was given a confident ride. I think they thought it was a certainty. He travelled well, and he just got a bit tapped for turning for home. A horse got first run on him. He ran perfectly well. I think he'll definitely improve for a stiffer test of stamina, the long, flat straight at Newbury, and a proper gallop on good ground. I think he'll go very well. He's very lightly in here. He's got Sam Twiston-Davies right down to near his minimum weight, I would imagine. Can't imagine he can do much less. And he's crept in at the bottom of the handicap, first go, mark of 124. I think that might underestimate him. He'll get a true run race for the first time, decent ground. Twiston-Davies horses are running well. He was 20 when the prices came out. I do see he is now sort of 12, but I'd imagine he'd be sort of 16 or bigger on the exchanges. And if you can find maybe 12 or 14 to one with 6 places, I'd imagine he'll give you a really good run for your money. Which one did you like? I mean, it is a race you could probably pick 5 or 6 and not find the winner, that's for sure.
It is, but I've gone 2v to field. I'm cheating to some extent, but I've got 2v to field. One of them is Master Chewy. I agree with you. He's a really
No,
strong traveller. Twister-Davies got a
yeah,
cracking record in this race as well, didn't he? Won it with Ballyandy, Splash of Ginge.
that's all right.
He had a course of a similar profile. I like to move it, beating and necking
Mm.
this last year. He often targets this race, as you say. He got £2 back from the handicapper for that Ludlow run, which was on heavy ground in a bit of a muddling affair. He sneaks in here off 1-2-4. Sam Twister in the sauna, get down doing 10-4. I think Master Chewy, major claims. You say the most eye-catching race I thought was the Cheltenham run at the December meeting, where he looked all over the winner of Attica. Well, I think he got outstayed on the new course. It just turned into more of a grind than he want. A flatter track here where he could be covered up and then kind of come with one kind of burst of finishing effort. I think could see him to really good effect. So I've gone Master Chewy, and fairly enough, I've gone with the horse just above him in the weights there, Dear Mark, for the Sam Thomas team. Rides on a hat trick. Been really going through the gears. Was runner-up at Cheltenham's October meeting by Fenner Cross. And say the last couple of starts, won nicely at Hereford, and then won a Shea Cosley. Won well back at Kempton last time out. Quicker Ground poses a slight question mark. However, he did bolt up in his bumper on fast ground at Hereford, and beating Lallygag, who's a more than useful sort for the Paul Nichols team. And I just thought here, this horse, he's got wonderful pedigree. He's from the family of Best Mate. So it wouldn't be a shocking time if he was over fences and further. But for now, anyway, I'm concentrating with those of the more unexposed nature here, Stephen, a bit like you. I like the untapped potential here, where there are others that have perhaps shown their hand are kind of coming here as an afterthought. So, Sam Thomas has said this has been the plan for a long time. I like horses that are targeted at these types of races. So, I'm going Dear Mark and a Master Chewy. As you say, you're looking Dear Mark, 5 places, 20-1. Master Chewy, a bit of 6 places, 12-1. Skybed if you want to shop around. So there are, as Stephen says, always keep your eyes on those each way concessions. Bookmakers will start tripping them over themselves on a Saturday to get that done. Right, that concludes Newbury. What should be some good action? We're off to Warwick now. Well, I'm off to Warwick anyway. Actually, we'll go to the meeting, the Kingmaker meeting. Really looking forward to this one. Again, some quality races on the card. We're going to kick off with the 205, if I believe. I think that's the first race we're going to look at here. Love Envoy is a very short price favourite. It's usually 4-9 or there or thereabouts to get the job done for the Harry Fry team. I mean, she has oozed class this season. Thought she might have needed a run first time out, but she wiped the floor with everybody. I mean, how do you see this with Stephen? Do you see a chink in her armour at the best part of 2's on?
Well, the only thing, I mean, I think I've selected her. I think she's a lovely mare. I think she's a massive runner at the festival, but there is a but, and it's what we were talking about earlier on, Ed, and that's the ground. I mean, she's revelled in heavy ground at Sandown twice this winter. She's a thorough stayer, and chalk and cheese, Warwick on good ground, Sandown on heavy ground. Warwick is sharp, left-handed, about speed. Sandown, right-handed, stiff uphill finish, grinding it out up that hill. Warwick is going to be a dash. So I am worried at the prices.
Right.
She is a vulnerable in. I mean, I think she's a lovely mare. I'm loath to oppose her. Maybe something like Ollie's Wishes, who's got a bit of speed and goes well on good ground at double figures, might be better value. But I think that would be a note of caution for Love Envoy. Harry Fry as well, who is sort of in my top 1 of trainers I like. I think he's a brilliant place of his horses, and he's patient and all the rest of it. He doesn't waste runs on them. He's only 2 from 18 in the last fortnight, which would be pretty low going for him. Again, I can't say they've been running badly, but he's not firing in the winners as you'd hope. So maybe a slight note of caution for the favourite. I'd love to see her win impressively and go to the Mayor's Hurdle at Cheltenham, because I think she's a big runner in that, up the hill at Cheltenham, hopefully with a bit of cut in the ground. But maybe round here, if it turned into a bit of a dash off that last bend, she might be vulnerable.
Yeah, interesting. She's 11-2 to win the Mayor's Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival 4 weeks' time, of course, which is actually, whether you agree with it or not, the Mayor's programme could end up being one of the races of the festival if we get Honeysuckle, Epitante, Marie's Rock, Love Envoy, and Brandy Love all going to post on the opening day. I mean, that's absolute magic stuff, isn't it?
I mean, actually, you made a point just quickly about Mary's Rock, who's 10-1 on the exchanges for the Stayers Hurdle. I was thinking, and I think I've sort of read somewhere, and I think you said it actually. If Epitante runs, which it looks like 10 on bound to, there's no point running that in the Champion Hurdle. Then maybe Marie's Rock will go to this. I mean, Marie's Rock could be a massive runner in the Stayers. She's the only one who's proved herself that she's got 4 legs and she's fitting well
She
and
could
all the
she
rest of
could
it.
go off favourite. She could go off favourite in
She
the
could,
stairs
and
if
she's
she liked
she's
it. Yeah,
10-1 now. Yeah, I mean we've gone off on a tangent, but I was thinking after you said it the other day that I mean she's bound to go to the stayers. You'd have thought, wouldn't you? I mean I can't see. She'd be a much shorter price in the stayers than she would be against Epatante, Honeysuckle, Love Envoy.
Mm.
I mean she'd be 10-1. I would have thought.
Well, it's amazing how the complexion of that
Yeah,
race has changed just finally on that, hasn't it? With
mm,
Honeysuckle parachuting into it and Epatante obviously
yeah,
being, 70-30 according to Henderson. She runs there. As you say, that race is suddenly becoming incredibly strong. Anyway, back
mm,
to today's action. And as you say, so Love Envoy, I'm going to throw in a tentative pick here for Indefatigable, the 10-year-old. She may just be gone at the game. That the
yeah,
old fires do not burn, but she doesn't have a great deal to find on ratings. She's won this race before, and she absolutely loves quick ground. She will not go on soft. It's just that's the bottom line. And I just wondered on ground, which is pretty much going to be good. I mean, they're saying the forecast. I'm looking at it now, 12 degrees in sun for Warwick on Saturday, with the ground officially good to softer places. She's going to have lovely ground here, and she is 25-1. I might look at her in the without market, or there's some form of forecast perm or something. So I wouldn't be shocked if she ran the best race she'd done for some time on ground. That clearly suits. I did make a bit of a boo-boo at the start. I missed out the 130, of course,
yeah.
which is, we're going to go back. Our lovely producer, Michael, I know he's on top of these things. The 130 at Warwick. We're going to look at here is 5 runners going to post for the Warwick Castle handicap chase. Now, it's the horse we've been talking about off air in here, Stephen, Stolen Silver. Heads the market 6-4. I'm going to head straight off the bat. I think he'll probably win. I know it's a huge amount of weight he's got to lump around here, but this horse comes alive on good ground, and his handicap form of this season looks absolutely rock solid. And if anything, I think he's been a little bit unlucky with the ground going against him last time out. He still ran a cracker. We've got Mackenberg in here as well. Horse number 2 on your cards, who's had a good season. Messier de Zobo, 11 now. Night in Dubai could be well handicapped for the Skeltons, going back through old form. And then Galahad Quest, who on paper looks the probably the most obvious one to challenge Stolen Silver. I mean, are you with me here, Stephen? The Sam Thomas Gray gets the job done?
Yeah, I mean, I like Stolen Silver. That form's absolute bomb-proof, isn't it? From Cheltenham last, there's been winners galore come out the race. He has gone up £4, and it's a different track. But I do like the fact that Adam Wedge is booked. I mean, we were talking off air. I've tipped this horse up for one of the handicaps at the Cheltenham Festival. He's entered up in. I think he's about a 14 or 16-1 chance for one of those. So I'd be absolutely loathed if he could easily go up another 7 if he wins well here, which would make life very difficult. So I'm half hoping he's a sort
Get him in
of
the right
creditable
air,
third. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
yeah,
well, that's the trouble.
yeah,
He's getting
yeah,
to that stage. He's going to be a very hard horse to place. That these
yeah,
Saturday horses sometimes disappear into the abyss, don't they? Once they get too high
yeah.
up the handicap, they've got massive weights to lump in these sort of races, or they have to go into graded company, which makes life much harder. So I think he's a solid favourite. I have selected Galahad Quest. He's only won one of his 13 starts over fences. He's a tricky ride, but I should think with Mackenberg in the race, they'll go a decent gallop. And I thought he ran really well at Wincanton last time, Galahad Quest. Jane Williams had a fantastic couple of months. Her horses have been flying. She's had a winner this week as well. They're still buzzing along. And I thought everything was in place for Galahad Quest. I mean, he's only 3-1. I certainly wouldn't want to take less than that. It's a trappy little race.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Keep your eyes on this. Yeah, small fields, but question marks back quite a few of them. You say Stolen Silver's form this season, pretty rock solid, it has to be said. If you haven't, go back and look at that Paddy Power Gold Cup run back in November, wasn't it? Obviously, Garlaw won it, and he would have been second at worst in the Sky Bet chase. Midnight River came out and won the handicap chase on New Year's Day, which Stolen Silver was in. Il Ridoto's come out and won again since. It really is working out well. On to the 240. It is the Grade 2 Kingmaker Novices chase. Look, on paper, it's a one-horse show. John Bon, 1-4, the best price you could find on the high street here to see off his 3 rivals. Haddocks Zobo, 11-2. Bass Rock, 20s. Calico, 50s. Do you see this as a straightforward assignment for John Bon? Bearing in mind, he has got to give away £5 to Haddocks de Zobo. Do you see Haddocks de Zobo giving John Bon perhaps more to think about than the market suggests?
Well, hopefully Haddocks de Zobo will try and lead, so at least we'll learn something new about John Bon, whether he's such a slick jumper when he doesn't dominate. I mean, he flew round here against Montmiral, first time out over fences. That form has not worked out at all. Montmiral has regressed since, and the third, West Cork, has been disappointing since. And then he went to Sandown and he flew round Sandown. He was very impressive. He beat a very solid yardstick in Boots Hill, who has won since. So that at least has given his form some depth. I mean, he's only been running in small field races over fences. And I think, looking at the Arkle, that you could only really back El Fabiolo at 5-2 rather than him at 5-4. That being said, I think he'll have far too much pace for Hadex de Zobo. Hadex de Zobo is progressing nicely from the front over fences. He was a workman-like... Yeah, his form's worked out well, and he comes from a yard going well, and he's a good jumper, but he's not in the same class as John Bon over hurdles, and I'd be amazed if John Bon didn't have much too much pace for him with a clean round of jumping. I mean, when he won here the other day, Hadex de Zobo, it was very heavy ground. Now, he did win at Doncaster on good ground, but he scrambled home there. He wasn't as impressive as he was last time, so you can imagine John Bon, he's a glider, a quick jumper. He'll just cruise away from Hadex de Zobo, turning for home, even if he doesn't try and... I suspect they will try and educate John Bon. I don't think they're going to do what they've done twice and blast him off from the tape. I think they'll try and settle him in behind just to try and teach him something that he's going to have to do at Cheltenham, because he won't be able to lead at Cheltenham, I wouldn't have thought either. So that's what they would do. I mean, he's 4 on. I wouldn't dream of laying him. I think that's his price. I don't think it's any bargain to lay him at all. The other two are $1 million.
Yeah, good point. The wider point on John Bon, I thought was interesting in terms of, I think Haddocks de Zobo will go forward. Form of that race last time out is working out a treat, isn't it? Third time lucky was 20 lengths behind him. He's come and won since, and so's Galop de Chasse. But that was on absolute ground like treacle. This is going to be different. I'm with you. I just think the raw gears of John Bon will be too much for him. In terms of teaching John Bon something different, you're quite right. I think they'll be very happy to try and take a lead from Haddocks de Zobo to kind of replicate what Dysart Dynamo's probably going to do in the Arkle in 4 weeks' time, because he's going to go forward, isn't he? And so I think getting John Bon just to switch off in behind and come with a late rattle might be, as you say, a bit more of an educational kind of performance. Well, I mean, fingers crossed. He gets round, doesn't he?
Let's hope he jumps round and they go, because I mean we're desperate for English winners, aren't we? We've got Constitution Hill and John Bon. Look, our 2 chances away from the handicaps. The other races look mission impossible already. But no, I mean I think that one of the reasons I fancy El Fabioli at the prices, he's 5-2 or 2-1, slightly just over 2-1. John Bon's 5-4 at best. Is I think the makeup of that race is that it's going to be set up for El Fabiola's very strong stamina, rather than John Bon's sort of quick jumping, doing it all on one breath. I mean, they're very closely matched on their hurdling form at Aintree, of course. I think El Fabiola's form over fences is in a different league to John Bon. Now, John Bon's beaten small fields on the bridle, but they are 2-runner races he's been winning from the front unpesters, where El Fabiola won a proper race in Ireland the other day.
Oh, it's one of the best 2-mile novice chases we've seen for a while, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. I think John Bon's the slicker, better jumper. I think El Fabiolo's got it in him to put in a bad jump, but will definitely stay and probably, arguably, might have the better engine. Anyway, we need John Bon to come round, 10 lengths on the bridle, and then set up, as I said, what will be a stunning race, won't it? John Bon versus El Fabiolo et al. In the Arkle in 4 weeks' time at Cheltenham. The second race on the opening day of the Cheltenham Festival. Cannot wait. So fingers crossed, if you're a big John Bon fan, he comes through unscathed. Anything else running anywhere we should know about, Stephen? You want to alert jump to it, viewers, too, on the Saturday? Could be across any card. Anything you want to flag up?
Well, I think my bets are all in the races we've covered, to be honest. Obviously, we're going to come to it, aren't we? There's a belting race at Navan, the Boyne Hurdle, on Sunday, Ed, and I know that you have been praying for Charles Byrne to get this horse right, because he's one of your fancies for the festival, isn't he, for the Stayers Hurdle?
Well,
lo and behold, he's reappeared. I mean, he's been resurrected. And I've also, with the Stayers Hurdle, we seem to be talking about it a lot. My personal fancy is Danny Mullins' Flooring Porter. A very upbeat report about him. He was sort of on the way to the grave, wasn't he, a few weeks ago? Suddenly he's back in full work, and they seem a lot more positive about him. So, I mean, he's gone out. I did look the other day, he was about 20, but he's about 12 now on the exchanges. So that's a good sign as well. I haven't been convinced we've seen him to best effect this season so far. And the way Danny Mullins is riding, I mean, we saw at the Dublin Racing Festival, absolutely brilliant. I mean, he rode them to sleep on 2 or 3 occasions. He's really going places over in Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. Canny Danny Mullins, as you say. But yeah, the likes of Blazing Cow, Flooring Porter, some of these horses who've made more comebacks than Tyson Fury, I think it's fair to say. But look, you mentioned that Navan card. We'll touch upon the Boyne Hurdle because, as you say, it could have a big bearing on the Stayers Hurdle market here. Blazing Cow does return after 428 days off the track. Won his last 4. Of course, a good form at Cheltenham as well in the sense of winning. You could argue perhaps beating Gelino Bello 4 lengths or whatever hasn't worked out magnificently well, but this is a horse who's got total untapped potential still. Got like Socida Burley in here, Beacon Edge, I think Delta Work as well, haven't we? And Saint Sam, who's becoming the hipster's choice for the Stayers Hurdle, isn't he? He's definitely one of intrigue. He stepped up in trick for the first time at Punchestown last time out, fairly dotted up. It has to be said. So interesting how he gets on. There's been a lot of money for him in recent days for the Stayers Hurdle. So definitely a watching brief, Stephen, this one, isn't it? Along with, if you look at some of the other races on the card, I did think the 210, I think it is off the top of my head, is it's the listed race for the novice hurdlers. That could be an absolute belter. With a lot of eyes naturally on American Mike, who is coming back on the track. Won on his hurdles debut down Royal back in November, and then 2-7 favourite, totally bombed out at this venue back in November. Really disappointing. In the aftermath, they've found a couple of issues. They've said they've sorted him out. He's back here, and of course he kind of brings that champion bumper form to the table from last year, doesn't he? When he followed home Facile Vega in the pouring rain. A champion bumper, Stephen, I think it'd be fair to say, it's exactly working out magically compared to some years, is it? I mean, authorised speed dropped out the back in the Tolworth, and Facile Vega's been turned over. There's got to be a few question marks about it, isn't there?
No, I mean, one of our listeners mentioned on YouTube in the comments, which is always worth looking at. We get lots of good interaction on there. I think I sort of flippantly said something like, the champion bumper always works out well. And he actually said, well, it actually hasn't. And he's right. I mean, especially after Facile Vega's flop, it suddenly, for the first time in about 20 years, doesn't look like the best race ever. It's left a mark on a lot of them by the look of it. I mean, American Mike was disappointing the other day. He was due to run at the Dublin Racing Festival, wasn't he? But as you mentioned, there was a family bereavement. He didn't run. But he was very strongly fancied for that Dublin Racing Festival race. They thought there was an excuse that they'd found and sorted out when he was turned over at 7-2 on. So he would be a very interesting runner here. I mean, coming back to that Boyne Hurdle, we just touched on, what a horrendous race to try and price up for the bookmakers. I mean, you've got the cross-country favourite, Delta Working. They're unlikely to be wanting to get a hard race. Let's put it like that. Deirdre's got a runner. Yeah. McNally's got a runner. The bottom one, Saint Sam, is becoming a popular horse, certainly on Twitter. He looks a big runner, but I mean, you'd like to think if Blazing Cow was right, I mean, I wouldn't want to be laying him. If Charles Burns has got him 100% and he's primed for this, he'd be an absolute certainty, I'd have thought. But by the flip side, he might be running him 70% fit just to see what it... I mean, he's one of those horses, if he was 5-4, you'd think, well, he might already have won this. If he was 3-1, you'd be thinking, well, what's coming up here? You know, it's a real exchange watcher's race. I wouldn't want to be trying to price it up with live accounts swarming all over you.
No, it's. I agree with you. It's a lot about what's not going on more than rather what is going on, isn't it? We'll leave it at that. But yeah, Blazing Cow, understandably, around 5-6-1 poke to win the Stayers Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival in a month's time. Been off the track for over a year, as you say. It was only 50-50, wasn't it, at Christmas, that he would make the festival. There's now a lot more than just a glimmer of light by the fact he's declared for the Boyne Hurdle at Navan on Sunday. Right, that pretty much concludes the weekend action we're going to be paying attention to. Now it's time to nail the colours to the mast with our tips of the weekend. Right then, Stephen, tips of the week. Time to find those winners. As ever, you get your nap, your value play, and your long shot. Take it away, please.
Well, first of all, the quick disclaimer, Ed, is that the ground has changed this week. We've seen lots of 50 and 33-1 pokes winning. We've been used to the last few months watching racing soft ground strung out all over the tracks. Now it's suddenly good ground. Everything's a lot closer together, much finer margins. It's a time when the ground changes, the form changes. So hopefully I've made my selections with that in mind, and they're good ground horses who want spring-like conditions, and that's what we're definitely going to get this weekend. The nap is Eldorado LN in the Denman Chase. I think he'll front run under Brendan Powell. He won this race last year with a brilliant round of jumping from the front, and hopefully he'll get Hitman off the bridle, which is usually enough to get Hitman beat. And he's got a lot to prove after last time. The value angle selection, we both like this one. Master Chewy in the 335. Unexposed novice, only had a few runs over hurdles. Was tapped around Plumpton. I think the galloping track at Newbury will definitely suit him. Sam Twiston-Davies been sweating in the sauna, crept in at the bottom of the handicap. I'll be very disappointed if he wasn't competitive, a mark in the low 120s. And the long shot in the 150, JBY, who's got sunk in bad ground at Kempton on Boxing Day, but had been promising before that in a couple of runs. He's got the good ground he needs. Not absolutely guaranteed to stay the trip, but I think he'll probably be okay on good ground. He's a smooth traveller, Sheehan book, pieces on. I think he should be capable of beating some sort of old and jaded rivals.
Yeah, some interesting selections there, as you say. That's a proper inverted commas spring ground, making for a totally different ball game to what we've been used to in recent weeks. For myself, I'm echoing some of your thoughts here as well, Stephen, where in the sense that I have gone 2v the field in my value play, Dear Mark, but I've got Master Chewy in there as well. I do like those two unexposed sorts in the Betfair Hurdle. Heart to Do Dairy for Dan Skelton team is my nap to win. That comes up in 348. It's a horse who bolted up on his stable debut here. Then been a little bit stop-start through injury and soft ground and comebacks and whatnot. But he ran a really nice race on reappearance where runner-up in Exeter. That was over an extended 2 miles too on tacky ground. I thought he just got a little bit worried out of it on the sound surface. I think we'll see that Dan Skelton runner go well. I should have my Dan Skelton t-shirt on for this week's show because I have gone for the proper long shot over at Utoxter now, Stephen. I know this is a horse we flagged up on this show a while ago. Now I think the phrase we used was he's either gone at the game or he needs to go up in trip, and if he does, he'll improve. Well, we'll find out because he's up in trip. He's come down in the weights. He's in probably the weakest race on paper he's running since, funny enough, he ran in the Triumph Hurdle, didn't he, nearly this time last year? I thought this is, any of the old Dr. Parnassus that finished 6th in the Triumph Hurdle or whatever, behind the likes of Vauban and Pied Pipers and Phil Dawes of this world, if he can rock up here in the mark in the mid-120s, he's got to go well. At 22 to 1 or thereabouts. Anyway, so he's the tentative each way play, but he is up in trip, and that has been burning up my notes, saying look for him when up in distance. A bit like all of us, Stephen. He's just losing a bit of speed as he gets older. I don't know if I'm just speaking for myself there, but anyway, that pretty much concludes the action. In terms of yourself, are you racing this weekend at the track, or you watching it from the sofa?
No, I'm going to watch and hopefully learn a great deal. And I know you're going to Warwick, so perhaps if any of our listeners come up to you and use the promo code WeLoveIrishRacing.com, Ed, you'll buy them all a drink. Is that what we said earlier up there?
Yeah, hashtag jump to it and I'll give you an 8-1 loser. There we go. Yeah, absolutely. No, indeed. Yeah, I am off to Warwick. Very much looking forward to it, actually. And as I said, just from a purist point of view, all bets aside and everything, just would love to see John Bomb bolt up by half the track, and then of course that does set up. We love these matches in racing, don't we? And that really will set up the absolute ding dong at the Cheltenham Festival, where if you take Constitution Hill out of it, arguably the kind of the two top novices from last season in El Fabiolo and John Bon, who were separated by a neck in Aintree. Hopefully, the two of them jump in the last in the arc would be a sight to behold. Anyway, that's for another day. Stephen, my thanks to you as always for your input. Don't forget, of course, to check out all Stephen's tips on bettingexpert.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow Irish Racing on all good social media platforms. And of course, you can watch all our shows on YouTube. Thank you, most importantly, for watching at home. If you've got any views on our tips for this, for any other show, including the Dublin Racing Festival review we've done, please feel free to leave some comments. You did make some interesting points on some of our selections from that show. And most importantly, please do gamble responsibly. Enjoy your racing this weekend, and we'll see you again soon.